Oppenheimer is everything that I anticipated and expected it to be, and then some. I was concerned going into Oppenheimer, not because I thought that Christopher Nolan would do a bad job or that I didn't think that it would work as well as the trailers appeared to be. My concern regarding Oppenheimer was mainly due to the foundational work that needed to be laid and grounded in order for us to feel a certain connection to the story, to the material. It's obviously a very timely film when we're talking about international politics and where the world is at right now in our current political state, with the Ukraine war and with our incessant need to amp up the tensions with China and how all of that kind of culminates from that time period of World War II to now. Other than that, other than the existential threat of nuclear war, how are we going to connect to these characters? How are we going to find common ground with what ultimately happened with the Manhattan Project and with Oppenheimer and how he invented this weapon of mass destruction and, perpetuating the discontent with the kind of McCarthyism and the communism that is so prevalent during that time. And this movie somehow manages in 3 hours to cap everything off, not by fully giving us answers into everything or even implying certain things, but just by showing us the contention in Oppenheimer himself as he has to make these choices. Both the lead cast and the supporting cast here do exceptional work. I feel as if the supporting cast is so strong that it could potentially lead to some Oscar nominations in the future if we're talking awards consideration. Robert Downey Jr. is unrecognizable. If all you ever know Robert Downey Jr. for is Iron Man, then this movie is going to set the record straight for you. Emily Blunt and Florence Pugh are magnetic on screen. Their presence is so drastically different from one another, and yet they have such a force on screen. And that's often a criticism of Nolan's work, is that the female characters are kind of left in the dust a little bit. But Florence Pugh specifically is given so much to do with what little time she has on screen. And make no mistake about it, it has an impact. Same with Emily Blunt. There are a few scenes where Emily Blunt is really given the material to make it worth our while sitting in this movie for 3 hours. I feel as if, especially towards the end of the film, playing Kitty Oppenheimer is a big feature for anyone. And she's able to both take the material that she is given and do really good work with it, but also kind of elevate the material in some ways for a Christopher Nolan project. Benny Safdie is particularly great in his minor role that he has here. And what I love about this film is that all of these different characters have a lot to do even in the end of the film, after the Trinity test, after everything kind of goes down. You have all of these different characters. There's so many names being floated at you on screen at any given time. And so to keep track of all of those things is ultimately difficult for a lot of moviegoers, I feel. And even for me, there are certain things that I knew about the Manhattan Project and about Oppenheimer that I didn't fully quite understand until I saw this film. And obviously, it's working on a biopic level where it's not only being dramatized and brought to life, but it's also kind of taking apart and really scrutinizing the life of Robert Oppenheimer. And I feel like overall it hit the mark. The sound design, it's loud. Obviously, if you're seeing it in IMAX or Dolby Atmos, it's going to be worth your price of admission alone. I feel as if the music from Ludwig Göransson is really piercing at times, and the sound design really puts you in a box of fear where you're scared of the possibility of an atomic bomb and of a nuclear weapon. A lot of that certainly comes down to just how well the sound design works within the film. It will for sure get an Oscar nomination when the Academy Awards come around next year. Cillian Murphy is just outright stunning. I mean, truthfully, the mannerisms, the dialect, all of it came together beautifully from the script to the screen, and his presence here is one of devastation. It's one of repentance and maybe even some subtle optimism. Christopher Nolan films have also been scrutinized for their coldness and their distance from the audience from an emotional aspect. And outside of a few key moments and Oppenheimer himself, I feel like that is largely true about this. This is more of a dissection of an entire time period and a culmination of, what World War II did to our perception of the international community, but also of the international community to us. And so when you're making a story that has a baseline interrogation of both things being true simultaneously, it's going to feel like it doesn't have a resonance for any one specific person outside of, like I said, Oppenheimer and a few key sequences. Did I think the movie was too long? I don't. There was a certain point in time, specifically towards the third act, where I felt like maybe, checking my watch once or twice. But at the same time, like, even that third act, which acts as kind of like an epilogue to the film that we've seen previously, is filmed like an action movie. The whole thing feels like an action movie without being an action movie. It's tense. I know at certain parts of the film, it's kind of almost like you sit up in your seat and in anticipation for what is to come on screen. And that is not an easy kind of task to accomplish when you're talking about a biopic. It's not my favorite Christopher Nolan film, but I will say that I like it significantly more than I liked Tenet, and I feel like it's on par with Dunkirk. So if you like Dunkirk, I think you're going to have a good time at Oppenheimer, and I think it'll be worth your while to sit in the theater for 3 hours. I know everyone kind of rolls their eyes and sighs at the fact that they have to sit in a theater for that long, but you know what? I did a double feature. I went to Barbie and then I went to Oppenheimer. So I had like 5 hours at the cinema. And, even then, I don't feel as if the time was really that big of a concern, especially when you're trying to pack so much into one particular film. And as mentioned earlier, it is definitely warranting of multiple viewings. And I certainly am going to make a point when it comes onto streaming, onto VOD, to buy it and watch it again, just so that I can fully have a good grasp on everything that movie was trying to accomplish. But I want to know what you guys think. Let me know down in the comments below what your thoughts on Oppenheimer were. If you saw Barbie and Oppenheimer, which one was your favorite? I am very curious as to your thoughts on everything that happened this weekend. Obviously, both these films are breaking box office records, and they're both at this point really critically acclaimed films. So let me know your thoughts, and we'll see you in the next video.